All right, welcome back. I hope you're all having a great week. If this is finals week for you, good luck. I hope you do well on all of your finals. Today, we are continuing our RBT exam question series, where we're going to go through 10 RBT exam questions, and I'll break them down how I think you should think about them when you take your actual exam. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe if you do enjoy my videos. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We offer 3 full practice exams, a RBT task list study guide, and our combo pack comes with everything. We also have our competency study guide for your initial and your renewal. So be sure to check those out. Any questions or comments, please leave them below or email me. I'm happy to help. Getting some great feedback lately. Keep it coming. Remember, when you do pass, let us know so we can put you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, let's just get right into our questions. Remember, keep studying hard and keep working hard. Question 1. After a supervision session, your BCBA introduces a complicated differential reinforcement procedure, which also includes a punishment component in certain situations. After attempting implementation, you are confused. What should you do? So in this case, we are starting some sort of new treatment. It's a complicated treatment and one that you aren't necessarily sure about, okay? So how do you proceed in this situation? Because there will be times as RBTs where you won't necessarily know what's best in each situation, which is totally okay. There's a reason the task list stresses open communication with your supervisor for these situations exactly. Nobody knows everything all the time. That's okay. The most important thing is to communicate, okay? So in this case, we don't understand the reinforcement procedure. You're confused. What do you do? A, use one more session to try and figure it out, and then reach out to your supervisor. You want to try to avoid this kind of common error where, okay, I don't understand something, but if I just get one more session, I'll be able to figure it out. And if not, then I'll reach out. Remember, every session counts for our clients, so we don't want to waste any time. We don't want to reinforce things we shouldn't be reinforcing. If you don't understand something, we shouldn't be just trying to figure it out. Okay, we need to reach out to our supervisor immediately instead of waiting. B, do not attend your next session. Wait for training from your BCBA. Again, not necessarily, right? We still need to go to our sessions. There are still other things you can be doing, even if you don't necessarily understand one component of the treatment package. There are certainly other things you can be doing. So while you should receive training from your BCBA, you should also still be attending your sessions and running what you do know. C, implement only interventions you know during session. Reach out to your BCBA immediately. Yes, this is the best of both worlds. We're going to our session and we're running what we do know. We're implementing what we do know, but we're also reaching out to our supervisor immediately for training and additional feedback. So C combines the best of both worlds, where we're still delivering treatment, but we're also communicating effectively and immediately. So C looks like our best answer. Let's read D. Run only maintenance targets during your upcoming session. Again, there's not enough here. Maybe you're only running maintenance because that's what you know how to do, but you still need to be reaching out. So when you're dealing with ethics questions, okay, we want a complete answer, but we don't want an answer that's too strong or too weak. And C is right in the middle, right? We're going to our session still, but we're only running what we know, and we're still reaching out to our BCBA immediately because the task list says we need to communicate in a timely fashion. So the answer here is C, implement only interventions you know during session. Reach out to your BCBA immediately. Question 2, Arnold's personal trainer has him on a special diet that restricts certain foods. Arnold is only allowed to eat a certain number of foods that contain large amounts of sugar. What type of measurement system would make the most sense to measure food intake for Arnold? When you're looking at measurement system questions, ask yourself, are we using a count? Are we counting things? Are we using time? It's a great place to start because that's going to point you in the right direction. Okay, so in this case, Arnold is only allowed to eat a certain number of foods that contain sugar. So are you counting something? Are we taking frequency? Are we looking at how many? Or are we measuring time, right? How long something happens, how long in between something. Well, Arnold only being allowed to eat a certain number of foods, he's going to have to count those foods. The time is pretty irrelevant, okay, other than maybe in the day, okay, but that's not where we're looking at. We're looking at his food intake, how much food he's eating. So he's going to have to track the count, okay, or the frequency of sugary foods he eats, right? So once we get past that point, the question becomes easy because if we look at A, our answer is frequency. B, C, and D, what do they have in common? B, C, and D, duration, latency, IRT, they all use time. We're not looking at time. We're looking at how much sugary food Arnold eats. Frequency is count or how much or how many. When you're working on questions and you're studying, okay, try to answer the question before looking at the answer choices. It's a challenging game to play with yourself. If you're looking at this question in particular, you can get all the way up to the point of almost immediately knowing we're looking for some sort of frequency or rate, okay? Because we know we're not dealing with time. And we're not dealing with time, so we can eliminate duration, latency, and IRT. These are the things you should be thinking about when you're studying, okay? Challenge yourself. As you're reading the questions while you're studying, try to start answering it and predicting the answer before you look at the answer choices. So again, what type of measurement system would make the most sense to know how much sugary food Arnold is eating? Well, he's going to use a frequency count. Mallory, an elementary school teacher, is working on math signs with her classroom. She is showing them images of addition and subtraction signs and reinforcing them for correctly identifying each. What is she teaching? Okay, so let's try to predict it. We're holding up an addition sign and a subtraction sign and reinforcing them for correctly identifying each. So that might look like point to the addition sign. And if they point to the addition sign, we reinforce them. If they point to the subtraction sign, we don't. We're trying to get them to do what? We're trying to get them to understand the difference between the addition and subtraction sign. So when you're trying to tell the difference between two stimuli, what are we working on? We're working on maintenance, discrimination, response generalization, or stimulus generalization. We know it's not maintenance. Why? Because maintenance occurs after teaching. She's still teaching this skill, so it can't be maintenance. We're still working on learning the skill. Maintenance is when the skill is established, and we want to check to see if that skill has maintained even though teaching has stopped. So we can eliminate A. What about generalization? Are we generalizing anything here? No, we're still inside the learning environment. We're still using the same addition and subtraction signs. We're not trying to generalize the skill. We're still working on this skill, okay? So therefore, that leaves us with B, discrimination. Discrimination is the ability to tell the difference between stimuli. In this case, Mallory wants her class to be able to understand the difference between different math signs. And she's doing that by holding up addition and subtraction signs and reinforcing them for correctly identifying each. So Mallory is teaching discrimination, and specifically discrimination between addition and subtraction signs. Your daughter loves Campbell's chicken soup. She requires a can opener to open the can. You're working on communication with her, so you put the can opener out of reach until she asks for it. What type of teaching is this? All right, so we're in the kitchen. Put yourself in the scenarios. Put yourself in each real world scenario. This is why while you're studying for the exam, you should be applying these concepts to your life, because that's what you're going to be doing on the exam, is looking at these situations and scenarios and trying to figure out, okay, what ABA concept am I using? Put yourself in this scenario, right? You're in the kitchen. Your daughter loves Campbell's soup. She gets out a can of soup and she needs a can opener, but you're not going to give it to her until she asks for it because you're working on communication. What type of teaching are you using? On the RBT exam, remember, we have two primary types of teaching. We have discrete trial teaching. We have incidental natural teaching. Okay, discrete trial is very contrived. There's a clear beginning and clear end to the instruction. We're doing it very rapidly, typically at a table. Incidental is more natural. We're using naturally occurring situations, things that happen every day, to teach. So which one of these are we doing here? Well, if we're just in the kitchen and your daughter just grabs chicken soup and you're using that as an opportunity to teach communication, what are you doing? You're incidentally teaching. Okay, the incident of her taking the chicken soup and needing the can opener is a great opportunity to work on communication. You take advantage of it. So you are incidental teaching. Incidental is the same as naturalistic. A is probably our answer. Remember, on our exam, we want to read all of our answer choices, make sure we are sure we have the best answer, and we understand why the wrong answers are wrong. So B, discrete trial teaching. We're not rapidly introducing SDs. Okay, this isn't a rapid style of teaching. So B is out. C, direct instruction. Direct instruction is a type of teaching in ABA, but not one you need to know for the RBT exam. And then D, TAC training. Tacting is labeling. We are working on request here or manding. So that leaves us with A as our answer. What type of teaching is this? Incidental / naturalistic teaching. All of September and October, you worked on reading first grade level books with your client. They were able to successfully read a book independently at the end of October. They went on 2 months of vacation and returned in January. When they returned, they could no longer read independently. What did they fail to do? So recall what we just talked about a few questions ago. When we're talking about learning a skill, training stops, and then seeing if that skill is still there after training, what are we referring to? Okay, so what did they fail to do? Did they A, fail to relearn the skills? Well, we haven't even started teaching them yet, okay? Additionally, relearn is not a term you're using, okay? So you can immediately eliminate A. Our client learned how to read, 2 months of vacation, came back, could no longer read. Very specific thing they failed to do. Did they fail to generalize? B. No, we're obviously not generalizing if they learned with us, went on vacation, couldn't read on vacation, and came back not being able to read. Okay, they definitely did not generalize the skill. What about C? Remember. Remember, can you measure remembering? Can you observe remembering? No, remembering is a hypothetical construct. Okay, it's a mentalism. We don't deal in mentalisms. We deal in things we can observe and measure. And again, remember is not one of your terms and definitions. You have to be a little rote on the exam and think about, okay, is this one of the terms I learned? And if you learn all your terms and definitions as you should be immediately realize relearn and remember were not part of your task list. Okay, so we've eliminated A, B, and C. That leaves us with D, maintain skills. Maintenance, the ability to hold on to a skill or keep a skill after training is done. Our client received teaching. They learned to read. 2 months of vacation without teaching. They came back, couldn't read. They failed to maintain the ability to read. So D is our answer. Selena's client is 15 to 20 minutes late picking up her son almost every day. What should Selena do in response? Very common scenario if you work at any sort of clinic, all right? You're always going to probably have 1 or 2 families that show up a little bit late, and once or twice is fine, but then it happens every day and it becomes a headache. As an RBT, what is your duty in this situation? Remember what your primary responsibility is as an RBT. It's not parent training, it's not treatment planning, it's not administrative duties, it's implementing treatment plans designed by your supervisor. In this case, this is a headache to you because you're sitting there 15, 20 minutes late. What do? Do you A, tell the parent the late policy and give them a warning? Is that your job to warn the parent about the late policy? No, right? That is not your job. That is going to be your supervisor's job first and foremost to communicate to whoever it is their responsibility to give that warning, but it is not your job. Remember, when in doubt, on ethics question, always openly communicate to your supervisor. Very rarely will you take it upon yourself to do something, unless it's something very straightforward in a home or whatever it might be. But in this case, if your client is late almost every day, okay, that should be something you should be communicating to your supervisor, right? Always openly communicate with the supervisor. So B, communicate with our supervisor and let the supervisor talk with the parent. Yes, right. That's the supervisor's job, or that's the administrator's job. RBT's job is implementation first and foremost, right? Pass the buck, pass it on to the supervisor, let them work it out. And they should be working it out for you, because they really should be making you wait 15 to 20 minutes late, okay? C, leave the client by themselves once their shift is over. Absolutely not. That's highly unethical. Hopefully C is not, hopefully you don't even consider C. And then D, say nothing. The parent might have other things going on. Again, that might be maybe a nice approach, but that's not fair to you, okay? You can't just say, oh, well, they've got other stuff going on, so they can be 20, 25 minutes late. Everybody has things going on, okay? There's the code says, RBTs are part of the team, right? We can't just take advantage of that. And you shouldn't let people take advantage of you either, okay? Because you are a primary part of that team. So the best response here, and typically the best response, is communicating with your supervisor, and then let your supervisor decide the next steps, okay? So B, communicate with your supervisor. Let the supervisor talk with the parent. A crucial component for frequency recording is what? Okay, so when we're looking at our measurements, we already said, right? We want to know, are we looking at time? Are we looking at a count? Okay, so we know frequency, we're looking at a count. And counting things, okay, what is a crucial component of counting things? There are certain behaviors where frequency isn't always the best answer. And there's a very specific reason why. So a crucial component for frequency recording is A, you should not measure a problem behavior with frequency. No, right? We can measure anything. Well, not anything, but we can measure both skills and problem behaviors with frequency. You're going to be measuring many problem behaviors with frequency. Okay, that's the beauty of measurement systems, is they can be used in a variety of situations for a variety of behaviors. So A is out. B, a way to track the passage of time. Is frequency a time component, or are we counting? Are we doing how many? Well, we're counting, right? So B, we can eliminate it because frequency is not a passage of time. What about C, a clear beginning and end to the behavior? Okay, so yes, frequency requires a clear beginning and end to the behavior, because remember, you're counting something. It's very difficult to count things if there's no clear beginning and end, okay? If we took frequency on crying, well, when you watch a little kid cry, it's sometimes very unclear when the crying starts and stops, because they'll start to cry. It might look like they stop crying. They're getting ready to stop crying, but then they pick up again. Okay, it's very, very common. So a behavior like that, it's going to be very difficult to measure a clear beginning and end to that behavior. And your data can get very messy, right, if it's not clear when that behavior starts and ends. So if you're going to take frequency, you really want a clear beginning and end to that behavior. And then D, knowing the time of each interval. Interval recording is our time sampling, is the partial interval, whole interval, momentary. Frequency is not part of that. Our only answer here, acceptable answer here, is C. Frequency requires a clear beginning and a clear end to the behavior. An NFL referee throwing a penalty flag for pass interference and giving the opposing team 15 yards is considered what in relation to the team that committed the penalty? Okay, so even if you don't know anything about football, right, you can figure this one out, okay? The opposing team is giving a penalty for pass interference, all right? So the pass interference is bad, okay, because they're penalized 15 yards. The referee throws the flag in response to the pass interference. What is that referee trying to do in regards to the pass interference? Is he trying to increase it, or is he trying to decrease it? Trying to decrease it, right? You commit a penalty, you get penalized. We're trying to decrease the pass interference behavior. We're trying to punish the behavior, right? So 15 yards is considered what? Now we need to ask ourselves, Are we adding or removing something? Well, the penalty flag is being added. So it's positive. Remember, positive is adding, negative taking away. So if we're adding the flag in order to reduce the behavior, we are looking at a positive punisher. Okay. So an NFL referee throwing a penalty flag for pass interference and giving the opposing team 15 yards is considered a positive punisher in relation to the team that committed the penalty. Now, while it is true, we don't necessarily know if the behavior was changed. Given our answer choices, positive punisher is the best answer. And that's the key. You always want the best answer because punishment and reinforcement is dependent on what happens to the behavior. They don't tell us that, but they also don't give us any other option. So D, positive punisher, is going to be our best answer. Again, we throw the flag positive, trying to reduce the behavior. Punishment, positive punisher. What schedule always uses time as the requirement for reinforcement? On the RBT exam, we need to know 4 basic schedules of reinforcement: fixed ratio, variable ratio, fixed interval, variable interval. We know ratios use responses, intervals use time. Continuous schedule. What is a continuous schedule? That's when you reinforce every instance of behavior. It's going to be our FR1. Does FR use time? Fixed ratio use time? No, fixed ratio uses responses. So we eliminate C. Intermittent schedule can be any other basic reinforcement schedule. Okay, that could be FR2, VI3, FI1, VR6, FR9. Intermittent just means not continuous, but intermittent doesn't always use time. We can use responses or we can use time. We can eliminate B. D, ratio schedule. Does ratio use time or responses? Ratio uses time. So that leaves us with A, interval schedule. The basic schedule that always uses time is going to be A, an interval schedule. Pretty straightforward question. Hopefully you know your basic reinforcement schedules. If not, go back, relearn those, brush up on them. They can be a little tricky at first. Once you get them down, though, you'll never forget them. Okay, so if this was a challenging question for you, go back to the study guide, brush up a little bit, and then come back and try this question again. Linda's mom informs the supervising BCBA that Linda will ignore her daughter as punishment for not doing her math homework. In order to determine if this intervention functions as punishment, what do we need to know? We just talked about this in our question 2 questions ago. Okay, what do we need to know in order to determine if something functions as a punisher or a reinforcer? What are we trying to do with punishment and reinforcement? We're trying to increase behavior or decrease behavior. If we're implementing a so-called punishment procedure, but the behavior is not changing, is that really punishment? No. Okay, we can do all the punishment in the world, quote unquote. If the behavior doesn't change, it's not actually punishing. Same thing with reinforcement. We can think we're reinforcing behavior, but if that behavior is not changing, okay, we're not doing anything. So in order to determine if the intervention functions as punishment, what do we need to know? A, how ignoring impacts current behavior. Do we look at current behavior to determine if something is punishing or reinforcing? Well, no, because the current behavior, punishment and reinforcement comes after the current behavior. Okay, punishment and reinforcement affect future behavior. So in order to determine if if punishment and reinforcement are working, we need to look at the future behavior. How does future behavior impact it? Okay, if the ignoring works as a punisher, right, then the not doing math homework is going to decrease, but we have to look at future behavior in order to identify that. So B looks like our best answer so far. Let's look at C. How does ignoring make Linda's daughter feel? As far as ABA goes, it doesn't really matter how it makes it feel. Okay. Now it obviously does in the context of real life, but as far as this ABA question, how Linda's daughter is feeling does not tell us if it's punishment or reinforcement. All that matters is how does it affect future behavior? Consequences impact future behavior. And then D, if Linda believes it is effective as a punishment. Doesn't matter what Linda believes, all right? It only matters how it affects future behavior. In order to determine if something functions as punishment or as reinforcement, we need to look at how it impacts future behavior. So B, how ignoring impacts future behavior. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did. We've got more videos coming Friday and Saturday, more of our BCBA series. Sunday is our shout out. Let us know when you pass, and then we'll be back next Monday. Okay. So if this is finals week, good luck. I hope you all do very well. Any questions, please let me know. Other than that, keep working hard, study hard. See you soon.